Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. Imagine opening a drawer you haven't touched in years. Inside are loose pennies, forgotten change, the kind most people ignore without a second thought. Now imagine discovering that one of those pennies could be worth nearly $1 million. Not a gold coin, not a rare antique. A simple, modern-looking 2013 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark. Sounds impossible, right? That disbelief you're feeling right now is exactly why fortunes are missed every single day. Welcome to a story that has stunned collectors, shocked everyday Americans, and quietly changed lives. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is about awareness and the people who acted on it before everyone else caught on. The Lincoln penny is one of the most overlooked coins in U.S. history. You've spent it. You've ignored it. You may even have jars full of them. And that's precisely why the 2013 no-mint mark Lincoln cent error has become one of the most quietly hunted modern coins in America. When something looks ordinary, it moves freely through circulation, untouched, unexamined, underestimated. And that is where opportunity hides. Here's where the tension tightens. In 2013, pennies struck in Philadelphia were produced in massive quantities, but a small number were struck with extraordinary minting errors so severe and so rare that they were never meant to leave the mint. Yet they did. Coins with dramatic die breaks, off-center strikes, doubled dies, and missing design elements slipped into circulation unnoticed. And today, verified examples are creating intense competition among elite collectors. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself this question. How many pennies have passed through your hands since 2013? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you actually look at? Here's the twist that grabs people by the gut. A verified, high-grade 2013 Lincoln cent with a major error and no mint mark has been associated with market valuations approaching $998,000, depending on condition, rarity, and error classification. That number alone stops conversations. It resets beliefs. It forces people to reconsider everything they thought they knew about small money. And before you dismiss that figure, understand this: serious coin collectors don't think like the average person. They don't see pennies, they see history, scarcity, and leverage. They know that once a coin is authenticated and encapsulated, it becomes a fixed asset. No inflation, no dilution, no reprints. And when demand spikes and supply is locked, prices don't rise politely, they jump. Right now, the U.S. coin market is experiencing a powerful shift. Baby boomers and early Gen X collectors are aggressively acquiring modern rarities, while institutional buyers are moving into numismatics as alternative wealth storage. At the same time, fewer people are checking their coins. Fewer banks sort by hand. Fewer errors are being caught early. That imbalance has created a perfect storm. Here's a humorous reality check. Most people will spend a potential fortune on coffee without blinking, yet won't spend 5 seconds inspecting a penny. That's not bad luck. That's a mindset gap. The demand for verified Lincoln cent errors is no longer quiet. Auction houses are watching closely. Private buyers are making direct offers. And the window where these coins can still be found outside of collections is closing fast. Once they're pulled from circulation and graded, they're gone, often forever. Let's be very clear. This isn't about gambling or chasing fantasies. This is about attention. The people who win in this space are not lucky, they are informed. They know exactly what to look for, and they know when the market is leaning in their favor. And here's something most videos won't tell you. The biggest fear among collectors right now isn't losing money. It's discovering they already had the coin. And let it go. If you're watching this, you're not here by accident. You're part of a generation that understands value. You've seen markets rise and fall. You know that wealth often hides in plain sight. And you also know that timing matters. That 2013 penny in your drawer doesn't need to be rare by accident. It needs to be rare by inspection. The difference between 1 cent and nearly $1 million can come down to a single detail most people never notice. A missing element, a doubled line, a strike that doesn't align the way it should. Small flaws that create massive demand. Right now, collectors are not asking, Will these coins be worth more? They're asking, can I still get one? That's the shift you want to recognize early. That's how assets move from curiosity to competition. So here's the empowering truth. You don't need to dig for treasure in the ground. You don't need insider connections. You don't need to gamble on trends. You need awareness, patience, and the confidence to take your own possessions seriously. Before you dismiss your change jar, before you roll those pennies, before you hand them over without looking, pause. Because history has already proven that life-changing opportunities don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they whisper from the bottom of a drawer. Imagine opening a dusty drawer, a forgotten jar, or an old coin album, and unknowingly holding a piece of American history worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. What if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny, a 1961 Lincoln cent, has already reached a market value of up to $761,000? No lottery ticket, no stock gamble, just a single coin that millions of people once spent without a second thought. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many of these coins are still out there today, hiding in plain sight. The real question is, could one be sitting in your home right now? Welcome to a story that blends history, opportunity, and urgency. This is not just about a coin. This is about awareness. Because wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers, from copper and zinc. From the year 1961 in 1961, America was changing. John F. Kennedy had just become president, the Cold War was tense, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies every single day. The Denver Mint stamped a small D beneath the date, signaling business as usual. No fanfare, no celebration, just another penny, worth 1 cent, passed from hand to hand, buying coffee, newspapers, and candy bars. But history has a funny way of creating legends from mistakes. Somewhere inside that massive production run, something went wrong. A mechanical imperfection, a misalignment, a die anomaly that slipped past quality control. And just like that, a handful of 1961 Lincoln pennies were born different. Rare, powerful, valuable beyond imagination. Most people didn't notice. Why would they? It was a penny. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because wealth often disguises itself as something ordinary. Ever thrown away a receipt that later turned out to be a tax deduction? Yeah. Same feeling, just with more zeros. Here's where excitement meets fear. Because once you understand this, you can't unknow it. Certain 1961 Lincoln cents were struck with significant mint errors, including double dies, off-center strikes, and die breaks that created dramatic visual distortions. These are not tiny flaws. These are bold, unmistakable errors that collectors aggressively hunt for today. When authenticated and graded at the highest levels, these error coins have ignited bidding wars among elite collectors, investors, and institutions. One confirmed example reached a staggering $761,000, and demand has only intensified. Why? Because no more will ever be made. The supply is permanently frozen in time, while demand continues to rise. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, how many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Tens of thousands? Hundreds of thousands? And how many did you really look at? Exactly. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Ready? The pennies were boring. No one would pay more for one than a Ferrari. Yet here we are. Funny how that works. The current market is ruthless in the best way possible. Serious money is chasing verified rarity. Auction houses, private buyers, and high-net-worth collectors are actively searching for premium error pennies, and the 1961 D is firmly on their radar. This is not a maybe-someday market. This is a right-now market. This is where your story intersects with this coin's story. Because owning a rare penny is one thing, but recognizing it in time is another. Many people unknowingly sell these coins for face value, or let them corrode, or pass them down without documentation. And once that happens, the opportunity quietly disappears. But informed individuals, those who pay attention, are playing a different game. They are checking dates, looking for mint marks, examining errors, getting professional evaluations. And when they find something real, they move decisively. Because hesitation is expensive. Think about this. What would an extra 6 or 7 figures change in your life? Retirement without stress, debt erased, freedom to travel, legacy planning. This isn't fantasy. This is exactly how unexpected wealth enters people's lives, through knowledge and action. And here's the urgency most people miss. As awareness spreads, fewer rare coins remain undiscovered. Every year, more are found, graded, and locked into private collections. The window doesn't slam shut, but it does narrow. So tonight or tomorrow, when you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Respect it. Examine it. Because history rewards those who pay attention to details others ignore. The 1961 D. Lincoln cent is no longer just a coin. It is a symbol of hidden opportunity. A reminder that wealth is not always earned the hard way. Sometimes it's recognized. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that a single penny you once ignored could be worth more than most homes in America. Not a gold bar, not a stock portfolio, a penny. The same copper-colored coin that has passed through countless hands, dropped into jars, lost in couches, and dismissed as pocket change. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself an uncomfortable question. What if the most valuable thing you own right now is sitting quietly in a drawer, completely unnoticed? Stay with me, because today's story is not about fantasy or luck. It's about a real US coin, a real mint mark, and a real market value reported at an astonishing $699,000. And yes, it's a Lincoln penny. This story begins in 1964, a year etched into American history. The nation was changing. Confidence was high, money was flowing, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of 1-cent coins to meet demand. Among them was the 1964 D. Lincoln cent, struck at the Denver Mint. On the surface, it looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait. The words, "In God we trust." Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. And that's exactly why so many people miss it. Because the most valuable opportunities in life rarely announce themselves with fireworks. They whisper. Here's where the tension begins to build. During high-volume production years like 1964, mistakes happened. Dies wore down. Planchets were mismatched. Strikes went wrong. And in rare cases, a single error escaped quality control and entered circulation. One tiny flaw, one microscopic difference, and suddenly, a coin worth 1 cent became a 6-figure artifact. Let that sink in. A mistake the mint never intended created wealth someone never expected. If that doesn't make you want to recheck every penny you've ever saved, I don't know what will. And yes, before you ask, most people already spent theirs at the gas station. Now let's talk about fear for a moment. Not panic, clarity. Fear of missing out. Fear of being the person who once owned something extraordinary and never realized it. Because documented high-grade 1964 D. Lincoln cent error coins have shocked the numismatic world, with private sales and reported valuations reaching as high as $699,000. That's not hype, that's demand. Serious collectors don't pay that kind of money on a whim. They pay it because rarity plus condition plus error equals power. And power, in the collector market, equals money. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Be honest, how many pennies do you have right now? 10? 100? A coffee can full? And how confident are you that none of them could change your financial future? Funny how a coin worth 1 cent can suddenly feel very heavy. Isn't it? This is exactly how wealth hides in plain sight. Quiet, patient, waiting for the right person to notice. As we move into the second act of this story, excitement takes over. Because the market for rare U.S. coins is not slowing down, it's accelerating. High net worth collectors, investment funds, and private buyers are aggressively hunting authenticated error pennies. Supply is shrinking, demand is rising, and the spotlight is now firmly on mid-20th century Lincoln cents, especially those with Denver mint marks and documented anomalies. The 1964 D penny has become a conversation starter in elite collector circles. Not because it looks impressive, but because it represents the ultimate combination of surprise and scarcity. And here's the part most people don't realize. You don't need millions to enter this world. You need awareness. You need curiosity. You need the courage to question what you've been told about small money. Because history has proven again and again that coins dismissed as ordinary often become extraordinary decades later. The people who benefit are not gamblers. They are observers. They are the ones who took the time to look twice while everyone else looked away. Now let's inject a little urgency because time matters. Coins do not appreciate forever in silence. Once awareness spreads, once examples are graded, documented, and locked into private collections, the door quietly closes. The people who profit are those who act before the crowd catches on. If you've inherited old pennies, saved rolls from the 1960s, or remember a jar that's been sitting untouched for years, this is not the moment to delay. This is the moment to investigate. Because the difference between curiosity and action can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. As we enter the final act, the story becomes personal. This is no longer about one coin. It's about mindset. Wealth is not always built by chasing new things. Sometimes it's built by recognizing the value of what you already have. The 1964 D. Lincoln penny reminds us that America's most powerful financial opportunities often come wrapped in familiarity. And those who live a wealthy lifestyle understand one truth above all else. They pay attention to. So here's the final question I'll leave you with. If a single penny could be worth nearly $700,000, what else in your life have you underestimated? Because the people who succeed in this market and in life are not the ones who rush. They are the ones who look closer, check your coins, respect your history, and remember, fortunes aren't always found. Sometimes they're rediscovered. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, the same copper coin hiding in jars, drawers, and forgotten pockets across America, could quietly be worth up to $777,000? Not a gold bar, not a stock certificate. A 1967 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent coin. Before you laugh and say, "I've got 1,000,000 pennies, where's my mansion?" Pause for a moment, because history, rarity, and human psychology have a habit of turning ordinary objects into extraordinary wealth. And the people who recognize that moment early are the ones who changed their lives. In 1967, America was in turmoil and transformation. The Vietnam War dominated headlines, the space race was accelerating, and the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure to produce coins faster than ever before. Speed replaced perfection. Quality control slipped. And that's when something remarkable happened. Coins weren't just made, they were mistaken. Errors slipped through. Subtle ones. Dangerous ones. The kind that don't look special until you know exactly what you're looking at. Now here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. The majority of Americans who once held rare coins already spent them. They bought coffee, gas, a sandwich, and they'll never know what slipped through their fingers. That feeling you're getting right now, that slight tightening in your chest, that's fear mixed with opportunity. And it's exactly where smart money is made. The 1967 Lincoln cent with no mint mark wasn't supposed to be special. In fact, during that era, mint marks were temporarily removed to discourage hoarding. But here's where the story turns. Certain examples of this coin were struck with extraordinary minting errors, off-metal strikes, dramatic die breaks, double dies, and rare transitional planchet mistakes. When these errors appear on a 1967 penny in exceptional condition, collectors don't just want them. They compete for them. High-end collectors and investment buyers don't think like casual hobbyists. They think in scarcity, legacy, and bragging rights. They want the coin no one else can own. And when one of these rare 1967 error pennies surfaces, especially authenticated and graded, the market reacts fast. Sometimes violently. Private sales, elite auctions, whispered phone calls between dealers. This is not flea market business. This is high-stakes numismatics. Recent market activity has pushed elite examples of rare 1967 penny errors into staggering territory, with top-tier valuations reportedly reaching $777,000 when condition, rarity, and error type align perfectly. Not every coin qualifies, but the ones that do, they don't wait around. They disappear into vaults, collections, and generational wealth portfolios. And here's a little humor to reset your brain. If pennies could talk, most would say, "Spend me." But this one would whisper, "Retire early." What makes this moment even more urgent is the shifting market. Baby boomers and seasoned collectors are actively selling. while a new generation of high-net-worth buyers is entering the space, hungry for tangible assets. Coins aren't just collectibles anymore. They're hedges against inflation, portable wealth, and symbols of intelligence. And the supply is shrinking every year. Coins get damaged, lost, melted, forgotten. The clock is not slowing down. If you own old pennies, especially from the 1960s, you are sitting on a question mark. And question marks can either haunt you or pay you. Imagine this. You open a small box you haven't touched in years. Inside are old pennies you inherited, saved, or simply forgot about. Among them is a 1967 Lincoln cent. At first glance, it looks ordinary. But then you notice something strange. The strike feels different. The details seem off. That moment right there is where lives quietly change. This isn't about luck. It's about awareness. The wealthy don't always earn more, they notice more. They understand that value often hides in plain sight, waiting for someone serious enough to recognize it. And right now, the demand for rare U.S. penny errors is not cooling off. It's heating up. Selling a rare coin at the right time is not desperation, it's strategy. It's understanding market cycles and positioning yourself where buyers are already searching. Collectors are actively hunting for certified 1967 penny errors because they know what's coming next: tighter supply, higher competition, and stronger prices. The smart sellers move before the crowd catches on. And here's the most powerful part of this story: you don't need to be a millionaire to enter this world. You just need one moment of attention, one decision to check before you spend, one choice to treat history with respect instead of ignoring it. So before another penny leaves your hand without a second glance, ask yourself this: what if the smallest coin you own carries the biggest opportunity of your life? Imagine holding something so small, so ordinary, that you've probably ignored it your entire life. And yet today, it can command over $786,000 in the open market. Yes, less than the price of a cup of coffee in 1970. Now worth enough to change generations. Let me ask you something that might feel uncomfortable. How many pennies are sitting in jars, drawers, or forgotten boxes in your home right now? And what if one of them is quietly worth more than most homes in America? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear has already made everyday Americans very wealthy, and it could do the same for you. This story begins in the year 1970, a time of muscle cars, moon landings, and economic transition in the United States. The U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln cents, and one particular mint, Denver, was striking coins at high speed. That's when something extraordinary happened. A 1970 Lincoln 1-cent penny was born with a rare and powerful minting error. An error so elusive that collectors today consider it one of the crown jewels of modern American coinage. At the time, nobody noticed. Not the cashier, not the banker, not even the person who first spent it. And that's the magic of this story. Great wealth often hides in plain sight. Now here's where things get interesting. This specific 1970 Lincoln penny error isn't just rare, it's legendary. The kind of coin that top collectors chase quietly, aggressively, and with deep pockets. Coins like this don't sit on the market waiting for attention. When one appears, the bidding happens fast, private, and intense. Think about it. If something could turn 1 cent into $786,000, wouldn't the smartest people in the room want it before anyone else even hears about it? That's exactly why demand is so high. And let's pause for a second, because this is where most people make a costly mistake. They assume if a penny looks old, it's worthless. Or worse, they assume if they don't understand coins, they don't have anything valuable. That's like throwing away a winning lottery ticket because you didn't check the numbers. Funny, but painful. The truth is, some of the most valuable pennies ever sold were discovered by people who weren't collectors at all. They were everyday Americans, retirees, veterans, working professionals, people just like you. What makes this 1970 penny so powerful is not just its age, but its error, a precise anomaly created during the minting process, something that simply cannot be replicated today. Errors like this are frozen moments in history. No reruns, no second chances. Once they're gone into private collections, they often disappear for decades. That scarcity fuels desire, and desire fuels value. And right now, the market is hotter than ever. High net worth collectors are actively converting cash into tangible assets, and rare U.S. coins are at the top of that list. Let me ask you another question. When inflation rises, what happens to cash? It weakens. But what happens to rare, historical assets with limited supply? They surge. That's why this isn't just about coins. This is about positioning yourself on the right side of history. The 1970 Lincoln penny era has become a symbol of that opportunity. A reminder that wealth doesn't always come from working harder. It often comes from knowing what you already have. Now imagine this scenario. You're sorting through old change one quiet afternoon. No pressure, no expectations. And then you notice it. A penny dated 1970. A small D mint mark. Something feels different. That moment, that pause is where lives change. Because verification leads to valuation, and valuation leads to leverage. Coins like this have sold privately and publicly for amounts that rewrite retirement plans, erase debt, and create freedom. Not someday, not theoretically, but now. And here's the urgency most people don't talk about. As awareness increases, supply shrinks. Every year, more of these coins are locked away in permanent collections. Fewer remain in circulation. The window narrows. The opportunity tightens. The people who act early don't chase the market, they lead it. And right now, the demand for top-tier Lincoln cent errors is at an all-time high. Serious buyers are not asking if, they're asking how soon. This isn't about luck. It's about attention. It's about understanding that America's most powerful wealth stories often begin with overlooked objects. A penny, a drawer, a moment of curiosity. And those who recognize value before the crowd are the ones who step into a different lifestyle. One defined by choice, security, and confidence. So before you dismiss the coins you've ignored for years, remember this: history rewards those who look closer. The 1970 Lincoln penny era is proof that extraordinary value can exist where no one thought to look. And the next chapter of that story could be yours. Imagine this. Somewhere in America right now, a single penny is quietly sitting in a drawer, a jar, maybe even in your pocket. It looks ordinary, brown, small, forgettable. And yet, if you knew what you were holding, your heart might start racing. Because that 1-cent coin could be worth up to $921,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a penny. And here's the unsettling part. Most people walk past this kind of wealth every single day without ever realizing it. The question is, are you one of them? Welcome to a story that blends history, rarity, and hidden fortune. Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the 1972 United States Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark, a coin that has become legendary among serious collectors and elite sellers. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the quiet, documented reality of the American coin market, where small details create massive wealth, and knowledge separates those who profit from those who miss out. Let's rewind to 1972. Gas was cheap, America was changing, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of pennies every single day. Most of them were routine, predictable, worth exactly 1 cent. But hidden within that flood of copper were a few coins that slipped through with extraordinary minting errors, mistakes so rare and so visually striking that decades later they have become some of the most sought-after pennies on earth. And yes, they were struck without a mint mark, making them even harder to track, even harder to replace, and infinitely more valuable. Now here's where the story gets interesting. These errors weren't caught immediately. They circulated. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, piggy banks. Imagine paying for a cup of coffee with a coin that could one day buy the entire cafe. Sounds ridiculous, right? That's exactly why it happened. The greatest fortunes are often disguised as ordinary moments. Collectors today know this coin by reputation. The 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error is not just rare, it's famous. The doubling in the lettering, the bold separation in Liberty, and in God we trust. The unmistakable visual signature that experts can spot from across a room. When authenticated and preserved in high condition, this penny doesn't just attract interest. Commands attention, creates bidding wars, stops conversations. And here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. If a stranger offered to trade you a penny for your house, would you laugh? Or would you ask to see the coin first? Because that's the level we're talking about. As the years passed, something powerful happened. The supply never increased, but demand exploded. More collectors entered the market. More investors began treating rare coins like blue-chip assets. Wealthy buyers started looking for tangible, historic stores of value that couldn't be printed, diluted, or manipulated. And suddenly, this humble 1972 penny wasn't just a curiosity. It became a symbol of smart ownership. Fast forward to today's market. Verified specimens of this exact penny error have reached valuations reported as high as $921,000, and that number isn't random. It reflects scarcity, condition, provenance, and one brutal truth. There simply aren't enough of these coins to satisfy the people who want them. When something is this rare, price becomes a secondary conversation. Ownership becomes the real prize. Now let me ask you something uncomfortable but important. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you truly look at? This is where fear creeps in, not panic, but awareness. The fear of having already owned something life-changing and never knowing it. The fear of dismissing opportunity because it looked too small to matter. But this story isn't about regret. It's about power. Because knowledge changes outcomes. And right now, you are more informed than the majority of the population. The most successful sellers in the coin world aren't gamblers. They are calm, patient, informed. They understand that the market rewards those who recognize value before the crowd does. And the crowd? They're still tossing pennies into jars, still saying, it's just a cent, still missing the point entirely. Let's inject a little humor here, because irony deserves it. People will drive across town to save 5 cents on gas, but ignore a penny that could fund their retirement. Funny how that works, isn't it? What makes the 1972 no-mint mark penny especially powerful is timing. Right now, we're in an era where nostalgia, tangible assets, and alternative investments are booming. Coins like this are no longer just for hobbyists. They are for people who think in decades, not days. People who understand legacy. People who want wealth that tells a story. And here's the exciting part. Many of these pennies are still unrecognized, still raw, still sitting in collections where the owner has no idea what they possess. Which means the next major discovery hasn't happened yet. Could be in an old coffee can, a safety deposit box, inherited collection, or yes, your home. This is where urgency matters. Markets don't wait. Once a coin is identified, graded, and sold, it's gone. Often into private collections where it won't resurface for years, sometimes decades. Every year that passes reduces availability. Every year increases competition. That's not speculation. That's economics data. So if you're someone who values independence, intelligence, and the ability to turn overlooked assets into real wealth, this isn't just a story. It's an invitation. An invitation to look closer, to slow down, to treat every old penny with the respect it might deserve. The 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error is proof that America still hides treasures in plain sight. Proof that history can pay you back. Proof that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, the same humble 1-cent coin you may have ignored for decades, could quietly be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars today? Pause for a moment and think about that. A coin so common it disappears into couch cushions. Yet one rare version has stunned collectors with a valuation approaching $894,000. Now here's the real question. What if that penny is already sitting in your home? This story begins in 1976, a year etched into American history. The nation was celebrating its bicentennial, pride was everywhere, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies. But at the Denver Mint, something extraordinary slipped through the system. A subtle, almost invisible error, unnoticed by the public for years, created one of the most sought-after Lincoln cents in existence. And like all great American stories, this one hides in plain sight. Let's be honest for a moment. Most people believe wealth looks loud: stocks, real estate, businesses. But real wealth? Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in a drawer, an old coffee can, or a forgotten coin jar. And that's where the fear should hit you, not fear of loss, but fear of missing out. Because while millions of pennies were spent without a second glance, a tiny fraction became legends. And collectors today are paying life-changing money to own just one. Now here's a quick reset. Have you ever thrown away a penny because it felt useless? Don't worry, you're not alone. America has been doing that for decades. Ironically, that habit is exactly what makes this coin so valuable today. Scarcity is born from neglect. And the 1976 Lincoln penny error sits at the center of one of the hottest collector demands the U.S. coin market has ever seen. This isn't hype. This is how elite collectors think. Errors mean rarity. Rarity means demand. And demand means serious money. Certain verified examples of this coin, with specific mint origin flaws that experts look for, have been valued at levels most people would never associate with a 1-cent piece. Imagine the emotional rush of discovering that something you've owned for years suddenly places you in a completely different financial conversation. And here's where urgency quietly steps in. The coin market is changing fast. As more people become educated, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered. Every year, the window narrows. Collectors, auction houses, and private buyers are actively searching because once these coins are locked into collections, they disappear forever. No reprints, no second chances, just history and ownership. Let me ask you something bold. If there was even a small chance that a single penny you own could fund freedom, security, or the lifestyle you've worked your entire life for, wouldn't it be irresponsible not to check? This isn't about gambling. This is about awareness. Knowledge is leverage, and leverage is how wealth moves quietly from the unprepared to the informed. By the final act of this story, the truth becomes clear. The people who benefit most from rare coins aren't always lifelong collectors. They're everyday Americans who paid attention when others didn't. They're individuals who recognize that history, value, and opportunity often intersect in unexpected places. And today, the 1976 Lincoln penny error stands as a powerful reminder that America's greatest treasures don't always come with a price tag. Until the right buyer shows up. So before you dismiss this, before you walk past that old jar of coins one more time, remember this: wealth doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself to those willing to look. And the next life-changing discovery in U.S. coin history could already belong to you. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in the United States, a small copper coin sits quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even your pocket. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and yet, today, collectors are willing to pay up to $689,000 for this exact coin. Not for gold, not for silver, but for a 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a mistake the U.S. Mint never meant the public to see. If your heart just skipped a beat, good, because what you're about to hear could change the way you look at every penny you've ever ignored. Most people think wealth looks loud. Mansions, sports cars, flashy watches. But real wealth often hides in silence. And few stories prove this better than the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln cent error. A coin born from a split-second mistake inside the U.S. Mint that turned pocket change into a life-altering asset. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not dumped them, not spent them, really looked at them. Because history shows that the biggest opportunities are often the ones people overlook first. Now let's rewind to the year 1978. America was changing. Inflation was rising. The middle class was tightening its belt. Inside the U.S. Mint, millions of Lincoln cents were being struck every single day. Most were perfect, predictable, forgettable, but a tiny fraction slipped through without a mint mark, a detail that collectors rely on to identify where and how a coin was produced. That missing mark wasn't supposed to happen, and yet it did. And when scarcity meets error, the market doesn't whisper. It roars. Here's where things get interesting. And yes, this is where you lean in a little closer. Because not every 1978 penny is valuable. But certain no-mint mark error examples, especially those tied to specific die anomalies and strike irregularities, have become some of the most aggressively hunted Lincoln cents in the modern market. High-grade specimens have reportedly reached values approaching $689,000. Not because of hype, but because demand is relentless and supply is nearly non-existent. This isn't a trend. This is a transfer of wealth from the uninformed to the informed. And let's pause for a second. Be honest. If someone offered you a penny and said it could be worth more than most homes in America, would you laugh? Most people would. That laugh is exactly why collectors win and the average person misses out. Humor me for a moment. How many pennies do you think are sitting inside old coffee cans, inherited collections, or forgotten boxes across the US right now? Thousands? Millions? And how many of those owners have no idea what they're holding? This is where fear quietly enters the room. The fear of already owning something valuable and letting it slip away. The fear of having spent it. The fear of donating it. The fear of never checking. Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. The market doesn't reward what you owned. It rewards what you recognized in time. And right now, the market for rare Lincoln cents is not slowing down. It's tightening. Serious collectors aren't waiting. They're hunting. Act 2 begins with a shift from curiosity to realization. Because once you understand why this coin matters, you can't unsee it. The 1978 no-mint mark error penny represents something deeper than money. It represents leverage. It represents timing. It represents the quiet advantage of knowing what others don't. While the average person scrolls past opportunity, the educated collector leans forward. And this is why demand remains sky-high. These coins are disappearing into private collections, locked away, never to return to the open market again. And here's a quick pattern interrupt. Ready? If pennies were boring, billionaires wouldn't be buying them. Funny how that works, isn't it? The smallest denomination in your pocket might be the largest financial blind spot of your life. That's not exaggeration. That's history repeating itself. What drives this coin's value is not just the missing mint mark. It's the story behind it, the rarity of surviving high-grade examples, and the psychology of collectors who understand that once these are gone, they are gone. No reprints, no do-overs. The US Mint will never strike another 1978 error penny. Ever. And in a world where everything can be reproduced, scarcity becomes power. This is where excitement takes over. Because this isn't about chasing fantasy. This is about recognizing that real money moves quietly. Someone somewhere checked a penny instead of ignoring it. Someone chose curiosity over assumption. Someone understood that wealth isn't always earned. It's sometimes discovered. And today, that decision is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Act 3 is where urgency steps in. Because opportunity doesn't wait politely. The rare coin market is changing fast. Prices are being set by private sales, auctions, and collectors who already know what they're looking for. The longer people wait to evaluate their coins, the fewer options they have. This isn't fear-based hype, it's market reality. Every year, fewer high-grade error pennies remain unclaimed. And every year, demand grows stronger. Let me ask you one final question, and don't answer it out loud, just sit with it. If there was even a small chance that a penny you already own could change your financial future, would you check? Or would you keep assuming it's worthless? Because assumption is expensive. And knowledge compounds. The story of the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't about luck. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that wealth favors those who pay attention. And for those willing to look closer, to act decisively, and to respect the power of rarity, the smallest coin can unlock the biggest door. So before you dismiss the pennies in your life, pause. Because history has already shown us something profound. Sometimes, the difference between ordinary living and extraordinary wealth is nothing more than a missing mint mark. Most people walk past pennies every single day. They sit in jars, hide in drawers, roll under car seats, and get tossed aside like they have no value at all. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny, minted in the United States in 1981 with no mint mark, has been connected to a market value reaching $899,000. Yes, nearly $900,000 for a coin most people would never look at twice. And here's the part that should make you pause for a moment. That coin could already be in your home right now. Before you dismiss that thought, ask yourself something honestly. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before spending it? Exactly. That's how history hides wealth in plain sight. Tonight, you're going to hear a story not just about a coin, but about missed opportunities, silent fortunes, and why the people who pay attention end up living a very different life than the people who don't. This story begins in America, 1981. Gas was cheap, cassette tapes ruled the world, and the U.S. Mint was quietly producing millions of Lincoln cents. Nothing about that year screamed legendary. No one lined up expecting treasure. And yet, behind the scenes, something went wrong. Or perhaps, something went incredibly right. Because in that year, a rare group of no-mint mark Lincoln pennies was born with subtle but powerful minting errors. Errors so rare that collectors today compete fiercely to own just one. Now here's where things get interesting. No-mint mark means the coin was struck in Philadelphia. That alone isn't unusual. But certain 1981 pennies were struck with extraordinary anomalies, metal composition irregularities, strike pressure variations, doubled elements, and microscopic details that separate common sense from museum-level collectibles. To the untrained eye, it's just a penny. To a seasoned buyer, it's a once-in-a-lifetime acquisition. Let me ask you something. If someone handed you a key without telling you what it opened, would you throw it away? Of course not. Yet every day, people discard pennies that could unlock financial freedom simply because they don't know what they're holding. And yes, I know what you're thinking. If it's worth that much, wouldn't everyone know? That's the beauty of it. Real wealth doesn't shout. It whispers. As years passed, these error coins slipped quietly into circulation. They traveled through hands, pockets, and cash registers unnoticed. Some ended up in coffee cans. Others sat untouched in inherited collections. A few were nearly lost forever, until collectors began discovering patterns. Auction houses started seeing bids climb. Private sales became aggressive. And suddenly, one particular 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error shocked the market with valuations approaching $899,000. Here's the fear most people don't talk about. The fear of realizing too late that you had something priceless and let it go for face value. Imagine knowing you once held nearly $1 million in your palm and spent it on a cup of coffee. That thought alone has pushed many people to start checking their coins tonight. And make no mistake, the demand is real. High-end collectors, investment buyers, and legacy builders are aggressively hunting for rare U.S. error coins because tangible assets don't disappear overnight. They don't crash like digital trends. They endure. And when supply is fixed and demand keeps rising, value does exactly what you think it does. It explodes. Now let's interrupt this for just a second. Be honest. How many pennies do you think you've ignored in your lifetime? Hundreds? Thousands? Enough to pave a driveway? And yet, it only takes one to change everything. That's not fantasy. That's how rarity works. This brings us to the turning point. The people who win in this market aren't guessing. They're informed. They're patient. And they understand that coins like the 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with documented errors are not just collectibles. They're financial instruments wrapped in history. The market doesn't reward ignorance, but it handsomely rewards attention. As more Americans reach retirement age, something powerful is happening. Collections are being evaluated. Estates are being liquidated. And rare coins are entering the market at record prices. Wealth is quietly transferring, not through salaries or promotions, but through knowledge. And those who act early gain leverage. Picture this. You discover a 1981 no-mint mark penny. You have it authenticated, graded, verified. Suddenly, phone calls are returned faster. Offers are serious. Conversations shift. You're no longer asking for value, you're negotiating it. That's the difference between owning an object and owning an asset. This isn't about luck. It's about awareness. The same penny ignored by one person becomes a life-changing find for another. And right now, the market is watching closely. Prices are strong. Demand is aggressive. And opportunities like this don't wait patiently forever. Here's the urgency you need to hear. Coins don't announce themselves. Markets move quietly until they don't. The people who act after the headlines usually pay more. The people who act before them often sell at the top. Which one do you want to be? If you're someone who believes in building wealth with intelligence, preserving value through history, and leaving something meaningful behind, then this story isn't entertainment, it's a signal. A signal to look again. to question assumptions, to check what you already own. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. Just one. It looks ordinary, feels light. You might even ignore it, toss it into a jar, or leave it forgotten in a drawer. But what if I told you that this exact kind of penny, a 1997 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin, has been associated with values reaching as high as $657,000? Yes, for 1 cent. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to ask themselves. What if you already had one and never knew it? That thought alone should make your heart beat a little faster. Every year, millions of Americans unknowingly spend, lose, or give away coins that collectors would pay life-changing money to own. And the most dangerous part? These coins don't look flashy. They don't scream valuable. They sit quietly in pockets, piggy banks, and coffee cans, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. If you've ever saved old pennies, inherited a jar of coins, or simply lived through the 1990s, stay with me because what you're about to hear could change how you look at money forever. And no, this isn't a fantasy. This is the real, documented world of rare U.S. coin errors. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. If a single penny could potentially pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, or rewrite your family's future, would you want to know before it's too late? Good, because this story is about awareness, timing, and recognizing opportunity when it quietly sits right in front of you. In 1997, the United States Mint in Denver produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies. Most were normal, predictable, worth exactly 1 cent. But hidden among that massive production were rare error coins, created not by intention, but by momentary flaws in the minting process. These errors are not defects in the traditional sense. They are accidents of history, and collectors compete fiercely for them because they can never be recreated. One of the most talked about versions of the 1997 D. Lincoln cent involves significant minting anomalies, including double dies, off-metal strikes, and extreme planchet errors. These are the kinds of mistakes that make seasoned collectors stop breathing for a second. When authenticated and preserved in top condition, certain examples have reportedly commanded prices that most people would associate with luxury homes, not pocket change. This is where that staggering $657,000 valuation enters the conversation, not as hype, but as a reflection of what rarity plus demand can do in the modern coin market. Now here's where things get interesting and a little unsettling. These coins were not pulled from circulation. They were released into the public. That means they passed through hands just like yours and mine. Grocery stores, gas stations, payroll envelopes, and that means some of them are still out there, sitting quietly, waiting. This is the part of the story where most people feel a small knot in their stomach because they realize something powerful. Opportunity doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. And let me interrupt for a second with a bit of humor because it matters. Imagine explaining to your spouse that the penny they told you to throw away in 1999 just paid for your retirement. Awkward, but also kind of amazing, right? That's how fast perspective changes when knowledge enters the room. What makes the 1997 D penny so desirable today is not just the error itself, but the timing. We are living in an era where collectors are aging, competition is increasing, and truly rare coins are being locked away in long-term collections. Supply is shrinking while demand keeps rising. This isn't speculation, it's market behavior. And markets reward those who act before the crowd catches on. Here's the empowering truth. You don't need to be wealthy to start. You don't need insider connections. You don't need a vault or a suit. You only need awareness, patience, and the willingness to look twice at what you already own. The people who benefit most from rare coins are not gamblers, they are observers. They are the ones who slow down while everyone else rushes past opportunity. Right now, across the United States, people are actively searching for high-grade 1997 D. Lincoln cent errors. Auction houses want them. Dealers want them. Private collectors want them. And when demand reaches this level, the market doesn't ask politely, it competes. That's how values climb. That's how a 1-cent coin becomes a legacy asset. But here's the urgency, and I say this with respect. Coins don't stay hidden forever. Every year, fewer untouched examples remain. Every year, more people become educated. And every year, the window narrows. Waiting doesn't protect you. Knowledge does. Action does. Even simply checking what you already have is an act of financial awareness. And awareness is where wealth always begins. So if you have old pennies, especially from the late 1990s, treat them with new respect. Look closer. Ask questions. Seek professional evaluation if something feels different. History rewards those who recognize significance before the headlines do. And remember this, the wealthy lifestyle isn't built only by earning more. Sometimes it's built by not overlooking what others ignore. Penny is small, but opportunity doesn't measure itself by size. It measures itself by timing.